There's some breaking political news in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter about a new Hulu documentary entitled Hillary. It's a series on Hillary's life because we haven't heard enough about her. We need some more information about Hillary. But she surprisingly bashes Bernie Sanders in very harsh terms. She said in an excerpt from the documentary, he was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. He was a career politician. It's all just baloney. And I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. I often say, don't underestimate the enthusiastic support that Bernie Sanders has from a lot of people on the left, especially young people. Hillary just, you know what, over their cornflakes. Because she's doubled down in being asked about her comments in this goofy new documentary. Speaking of goofy, the media seemed very disappointed that there wasn't mayhem in Richmond. I've known Dr. John Lott Jr. for years. First gained attention worldwide with his fine book, The War on Guns, Arming Yourself Against Gun Control Lies. If you don't think there's a war on guns, you're not paying attention to what's happening in the state of Virginia. Dr. Lott is here at the SHOT Show, powering through a cold. So you're a real trooper to join us. Please stay at least 6 feet away from me.
I was just going to say, I'm not going to take it personally if you move away from me.
Right. I may not give you a hug. It's good seeing you here at the SHOT Show. What a place to be, John, in the middle of this Virginia controversy, the Second Amendment conversation we're having in America. Those patriots yesterday in Richmond represent what you've been saying for years, that the left does want to take away the right to keep and bear arms. And in Virginia, they're not even keeping it a secret. I mean, they're very transparent about what they want to do to the Second Amendment.
Well, the irony is they have like 12 gun control laws that they're saying that they're going to pass that are supposedly motivated by the Virginia Beach shooting that happened last year.
Right.
And yet not one of the bills would have had anything to do with stopping the attack that was there. You kind of wonder, have they no shame on this? They're basically rules that are going to make it more costly, a lot more costly for law-abiding citizens to be able to go and have guns. They're going to be doing things like dramatically reducing reciprocity. Right now, if you have a concealed carry permit in any of the states, you're allowed to go and carry in Virginia. They're going to limit it to maybe 4 or 5 states that they're going to recognize the permits from. What does that have to do with stopping it? If anything, what they should have learned is that the attack at Virginia Beach occurred in a gun-free zone.
But John, don't they always react the same way? They predictably try to enact gun legislation that has nothing to do with the crime that initiated in the first place. Look at Sandy Hook in Connecticut. I often said after that horrific tragedy when all those little babies, those beautiful children were slaughtered, and Connecticut immediately rushed to a bunch of gun control laws that didn't address anything to do with a young man, an evil, sick kid, murdering his mother, taking her lawful guns out of the gun safe and going to an elementary school, and then they came up with all these laws that had nothing to do with the actual crime.
Right. Yeah. Look, the number one law that keeps on getting pushed after each mass public shooting is these universal background checks.
Right.
These background checks on private transfers of guns. Tell me one mass public shooting this century that would have been stopped.
Just one
that would have been stopped by having such a law in effect. And the answer is there's none. And yet it doesn't seem to bother them. And the thing is, even before they know what happened in a particular case, they're already coming out and talking about, universal background checks or other things within an hour or so of the attack before they know any facts about the case.
John Lott is with us. What I like, John, and you got to, if you haven't read The War on Guns, you got to mentally arm yourself with the kind of knowledge that this man imparts, because we are in a battle for the Second Amendment, for the Constitution. There is a political answer to it, and I say it over and over again. People wring their hands and say, well, how do we keep what's happening in Virginia from happening again? You got to vote for politicians who represent our interests.
Yeah, no, if there had been a little bit more of the energy that we saw yesterday before the election, then maybe they wouldn't have taken control of the state Senate by one vote.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
and
Just a little less apathy. Drag yourself to the polls. If people stay home on November 3rd, we're going to pay a price. And I say over and over again, John, this election is going to boil down to people who are paying attention and people who aren't. In Virginia, the Second Amendment, your area of expertise, I always say, look at your hand. What digits do you want to give up when you give away your rights?
Right.
Which rights do you want to lose?
Well, this election that's coming up federally is extremely important. I mean, you have the courts that are there. The Democrats still control the majority of the appeals courts in this country. We may have 5 justices on the Supreme Court, but you look at somebody like Roberts. It looks like we just had this case from New York where you had this bizarre New York City ordinance that basically, if you got licensed to have a gun and to carry, you could only take your gun from your home to a firing range. You couldn't even move it to another residence.
Right.
You couldn't even take it out of the city.
Right.
And but it looked from the questioning as if Roberts is going to join the liberals on the court and say that the case is moot because at the last moment New York City tried to take the case away from the Supreme Court by changing the rules there. And I think you really need one more justice on the Supreme Court in order to have some real changes.
Which is why Donald Trump needs another term.
Right, exactly.
There's just no question about it. Let me ask you about the intensity of the attacks on the NRA as an example. You've suffered the slings and arrows for your work over the years. You've been smeared. I've watched it. I mean, it's chilling the way they try to silence the John Lotts of the world. Are you surprised at the intensity of the way this debate has become personalized? They blame the NRA literally. They say they continually.
They say I have blood on my hands.
Blood on your hands.
I testified before Congress earlier last year, and you have Moms Demand Action people coming up afterwards saying that they were going to stand outside my home and force my kids to see pictures of people who had been murdered
Your kids.
with guns.
Your children.
Right. And, my thought was, so are you going to show them pictures of people who are alive today because they were able to go and defend themselves and their families too? There's a guy who used to work PR for Bloomberg, and it's amazing how much money he's put into like these bots for things like Twitter and Facebook, where they have just these artificial intelligence programs that he's spent tens of millions of dollars to make it look like people are attacking others that put things up. And Bloomberg's hired psychologists out there to go and figure out how do you discourage people from engaging in social media. So these bots descend on people. They're programmed in certain ways to try to discourage people, and there are 2 reasons for doing that, I understand. One is then the remaining people feel more isolated. And also, you just get so people don't want to engage in political debate on the other side.
They get beaten down. They get worn down, and they don't want to have the conversation.
But they don't even know it's not even real people. It's just a computer program.
Right. Let's talk about what happens when when something in real time happens that breaks the narrative. Look at the church shooting a couple of weeks ago. Guy walks into a church, kills 2 men in cold blood.
Right.
An armed security guard, trained, a great marksman, responsible gun owner, takes that shooter out in the matter of seconds, saving Lord knows how many lives. Now the left says that never happens. The Wayne LaPierre line. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Look what happened in that church, John.
Look, the only thing that's unique about that case is that it got national media attention.
Right.
And you can call the guy a volunteer security guard, but it was just one of these situations. I mean, where a concealed carry permit holder goes to the minister and said, I'd like to be able to carry. Say, fine, I'll just call you our volunteer security that's there.
Right.
And, I can give you a number of church shootings that have been stopped over the years by people with concealed handgun permits. On our website at crimeresearch.org, I have literally dozens of dramatic cases in just the last few years where what otherwise would have been a mass public shooting was stopped by a concealed carry permit holder. But what is different is they just don't get media attention.
Right.
you know.
And I would argue, by the way, that shooting in that church didn't get the kind of national media attention it would have gotten had it not been breaking that narrative, interrupting the narrative that never happens. I mean, it got some media attention. There's no question.
Well, I think part of the reason why it got media attention initially is they were able to call him a security guard.
Right. Good
if
point.
they hadn't done that, I think it would have ended up like these other cases.
Because he was a churchgoer. He was a citizen.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, good point. Well, we got a lot of battles to fight. CrimeResearch.org is John's website. Again, he's the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Nurse your cold, get some rest, drink lots of fluids, and thanks for popping by here and talking about this battle that we're all experiencing as Americans.
Your voice is very important.
Thank you,
Glad
John.
you're out there.
You too. God bless you. All the best.